So, when we think about what's transpired ahead of this, when we look at the creative process and how much our thinking uh, controls what goes on in our life, there's one spiritual practice that's powerful and fundamental, and that is the practice of gratitude. Now, many of us over the past few months, from Thanksgiving time all the way up until even some of in this first of the year, have had many opportunities to be grateful. We've had many opportunities to say thank you um, for all of the wonderful things, the gifts, the people coming to our houses, people going elsewhere, whatever it is. If you're not fond of snow, the warm weather, and if you're fond of snow, the snowstorms that we've had. But we have so many opportunities to be grateful and thankful in these past holidays, and we have that opportunity every day. Like I said, gratitude is a fundamental and very powerful spiritual practice. For what it does is it shifts our consciousness. It shifts it away from the difficulty that we may be in to a consciousness of understanding. It shifts our focus away from what it is that is what's not working for us in the moment, and to one of dwelling in the presence. It brings us, as Bob was talking about, into that state of the now. And the quote that Mary Jo read is so pertinent. And if you are interested, it is in the book 365 Science of Mind. It's on the opening page for November. And there's many quotes there from Ernest Holmes and others about gratitude and the importance of Thanksgiving. And to reiterate what she said is, when we have this attitude of Thanksgiving, it carries us beyond the field of doubt, beyond the field of fear. It takes us into a space of faith. And we'll get a little bit more into that. When we go into this, we get into a sense of gladdening the heart, and it opens us up to be more receptive. And we can give thanks for things that have already occurred in our life, things that are happening in the moment. But as we all know, when we practice spiritual mind treatment, we're actually expressing gratitude for that which is not yet manifest in our life. And why do we do that? Because that's very powerful. Because when we can be grateful for what we know is coming into our experience, we express the faith that we have. And when we do it as part of spiritual mind treatment, we are expressing the faith that what we have called into being is already underway in the one mind. And that brings us into an attitude of receptivity. For one of the things that, one of the parts of this way this whole creative process works is that God cannot give us anything unless we're in the mental condition to receive it. And that's an Ernest Holmes quote from Science of Mind, page 470. So I can only receive what I am able to accept. So Thanksgiving opens us up when we are grateful for what we have. Now, there's some things that can get in our way about Thanksgiving, about being grateful. And it can be, I remember when I was preparing for this talk, one of the things that became very prominent for me was, at Christmas or birthday or whenever it was that I would receive presents, I was always very grateful and excited. And if people were there, I would thank them for that. And then when it was all over, when Christmas was over, when the party was over for the birthday, I got this, stern look from my mother and my grandmother. Both were very much part of this, saying, okay, now it's time to sit down and write the thank you notes. And it was like, oh, do I have to do that? Do I have to take that time? And it's interesting because when I take that time to give thanks, to acknowledge what I have received, whether it's a thank you note to somebody who's given me a gift, or whether it is just sitting down at the end of the day and what am I grateful for that has happened in this day. What I do is I again open myself up to allowing more to come in. But if I take that attitude of, oh, that's going to take time, it's going to, then what I do is I shut that flow down. So things that stop us from expressing gratitude are questions that we can ask ourselves. Do I feel like I don't deserve this? Do I feel like I'm not enough to have whatever it has that has been given, whether it is a physical gift or it is a compliment, or it's just a wonderful day that you've had? Am I uncomfortable with the other person's generosity? Is there pride involved that if I accept this gift, then somehow there's something I'm something less of, like I can't do something myself? And the other piece of that is maybe I feel like I deserve more. So why should I be grateful for this? Because I deserve so much more. We also have some behaviors that can block this attitude of gratitude. And some of those are complaining. When I start complaining about something, I come way out of gratitude. I go into fear and doubt and worry and blame and shame. It's also finding fault with whatever it is that's going on in my life, or taking what I have for granted. So if we take what we have for granted, if we aren't grateful for what it is that is currently in our existence, then it's not going to open me up to more. And opening up to allow that the gift of life to continue to flow to us is the key to having the life that we desire. Another thing that's really common is to toss aside a compliment, something as simple as that, when someone will say, oh, that's a really great outfit you have on today. And sometimes, people will go, oh, it's so old, or, oh, you'll never know. I got this for, it's so cheap, or, oh, it was so expensive. I don't wear it very often. And it just kind of cuts off that exchange of love that happens. Because when we give thanks, when we are grateful for things that are already in our experience, when we're grateful for even the simplest things that come to us, we are purifying our emotional response to life. We're purifying it, and we're focusing on love. And we are moving away from fear and doubt and worry and shame. And that is the key to gratitude. And when we can get into this attitude of gratitude to the point of being grateful for what has happened, being grateful for what is currently in our existence, and being grateful for what is coming, we just open that flow of giving and receiving. We open up the creative process to bring to us that which we desire. A contemporary of Ernest Holmes, Emmett Fox, said that giving thanks before the actual manifestation occurs is the royal road to manifestation, because we are not only confirming our faith, but we're acknowledging the receipt of good from the giver of all perfect gifts. So when every time we can say, I am grateful, take what Michael Gott said in that, release and let go. You can hear in his voice how grateful he is. And for me, there's a very simple song that I sing in the morning, or hum it, or depends on who's around. If I need to be quiet or something, I'll just hum it, or just allow it to be in my mind. It was in my mind the whole time Bob was doing the meditation, and that is, you'll have to forgive me, I have a cold, so I'm not sure how well my voice will be. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. And I can go on with that. And each time I say something else that I'm grateful for that day. And it just starts the whole day off. And it counteracts any of the negativity that any of us that I can put in place to choke down that attitude of gratitude. And just remember that life itself is the ultimate gift. The fact that we are here, we are as I think it was Jean who said it, but we are here by divine appointment. We're here at Connecticut Center for Spiritual Living this morning by divine appointment. We are here on this planet at this moment in time by divine appointment. And each and every one of us has a unique gift that we can bring. That we bring, not that we can, that we do bring to all of humanity, all of creation. Each of us is an individualized and unique expression of the divine. And one of the images that I have of that is that if the divine, God, Creator, Great Spirit, whatever you want to call the power and presence that is behind all of creation, if I think of that as this enormous jewel with many, many facets that are each unique and individualized, that we are each one of those facets. And the light that comes from that jewel, we project out into the world in a way that only we can. And as we work to have a fuller and freer expression of the divine as us, what we do is we just shine that light even more, that light comes through and it touches everyone with whom we interact. And this whole concept of gratitude, it's like a magical, I don't know. Alchemy is one of the words that I've heard it used for it. But it's like it's one of those where, and I learned this before I came into Science of Mind. If my day was going downhill, if I was going down that slippery slope, the first thing I was to do would be to stop, sit down, and name 3 things that I was grateful for in that moment right then. Name 3 things that I'm grateful for. And when you do that, when you really stop and consciously name 3 things, and the person who taught me this actually said, write it down, because there's also, you have to stop and think to actually write it down. You can feel it starting to shift you. You can feel the alchemy, you can feel the magic, you can feel the power of gratitude. And when I would finish the 3, they'd say, okay, come up with 2 more. Because the more I can be grateful, the more this appreciative or inquiry that I make into my own self of what am I grateful for in this moment will transform me from focusing on what's not working to looking at and dwelling in what is present right now. What is it that brings me joy in this moment, no matter what is going on? And I have to say, when I first heard this, it was like, no, there's no way anything can shift like that, until I started doing it. Until I started doing it on a regular basis. And there's a story about someone you might be familiar with. There's a comedian, Stephen Colbert, who, when he was 10 years old, there was a tragic airplane crash that killed both his father and 2 of his brothers. And when he was being interviewed by Anderson Cooper of CNN, Anderson Cooper had heard that Stephen Colbert had said that the biggest lesson he learned from that was to love the thing that I most wished had not happened. And so he asked him about it. He asked him, what did you mean by that? That's a huge statement to make. I learned to love the thing I most wish had not happened. And Colbert said to this, and I'm going to quote it, "It's a gift to exist, and with existence comes suffering," replied Colbert. "I don't want it to have happened, but if you are grateful for your life, then you have to be grateful for all of it. You can't pick and choose what you're grateful for." You can't pick and choose what you're grateful for. So what that is telling me is how important it is to be grateful for everything that brought me to this point in time in my life, and being grateful for everything that's coming to me in my life. And when I can shift that, life changes. And I remember the day I got it. Being grateful for all that happened to me up to that moment in time. And I was actually taking a class with Reverend Patrick. And as I was preparing for my project for that class, it was one of those spiritual awakenings, if you will, one of those moments where you just, I don't know, I can't describe it. It's almost like an out-of-body experience where all of a sudden seeing everything in my life, everything that I had labeled as tragic, as bad, or anything in that, things I wanted to forget, things I wanted to stuff away. When I could look at them and see how it brought me to where I was, how I became the person I am today. And I didn't have the words to love the thing I most wished had not happened. But in reading this story about Stephen Colbert, that's what I realized had happened for me. It's not that I didn't want it to happen. I wouldn't wish it to happen again. I wouldn't wish it on anybody else, whatever the particular experience is. But I can sit there and look and see, who am I today? Where have I come? Oh my gosh, how many people have I helped through similar situations? And I can be grateful for that. And then that launches me into being grateful for what I have in this moment. And then that will launch me into being grateful for what it is that has not yet manifested in my life. And when I do that, then the whole creative process shifts, and visualizing and doing visioning and making that, as Emerson says, when you make a decision, the universe conspires to make it happen. I can focus on that decision, whatever it is I choose to have in my life. And so every morning I sing, "Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day." And so what can I do? What can I do to expand my consciousness of gratitude, my attitude of gratitude? There's so many things that can be done. It's as simple as making a gratitude list. It could be something part of a morning practice or part of an evening practice, or both. What am I grateful for? What am I grateful for that I expect to have happen today? Am I grateful for an opportunity that's coming up? What am I grateful for that did happen today? there's a practice that I've done before, and I'm, before January ends, I'm going to start it again, and that's called a gratitude jar. And that's where sometime during the day, you take a piece of paper and you write down something you're grateful for in that moment, and you put it in the jar. And you can do it more than once a day if you choose. And what happens is at the end of the year, or anytime during the year, you can pull something out of that jar. You can go in and look at all of the things you were grateful for. And it just opens, you can just feel it opening up your heart. Another one is to just take a moment before you eat and give thanks for that meal. You don't need to have a rote prayer or anything. You can just take one moment, close your eyes, and just be grateful for not only the food that you're about to eat, but for everyone and everything that was in the chain of bringing it to your plate in that moment. And recognizing that what it is you're about ready to eat is a representation of all the abundance that is available in the entire universe. And finding something to be grateful in any situation. It's a lot of you are familiar with my grandson Carl. He's now almost 3.5. He was watching a little thing, Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, which is an extension of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, for those of you who are familiar with that. And Daniel and his friends were learning that day about when something bad happens, find something good. And it's the same thing as finding something to be grateful for. And what happened was it was Daniel's birthday, and he went with his mom to the bakery and got a cake. And he wanted so badly to carry the cake home all by himself. And you could just watch as they're going, getting back home, and the cake box is shaking around and everything. And he gets home and he opens up the cake, and it's all smashed up. It was a cake in the shape of a cat laying there. And he'd even decorated it and everything at the baker. And he was so excited about it. And when he opened the box and everything had been smushed down to almost just this pile of cake and frosting, he started getting angry and frustrated. And his father came to him and said, which was the theme of this whole little episode, and said the jingle, which I can't remember that, but basically it was find something good. When something bad happens, find something good. And so they got to stop and thought about it. And Daniel wondered if the cake still tasted good. And so he and his dad took a couple spoons and ate a bite of the cake, and it's like, oh, wow, this still tastes really good. So he went on with his birthday party, and they all had fun. And that's a story about a fictitious tiger who has a voice and talks a lot like Mr. Rogers. But you can always go back to the story of Stephen Colbert. You can always go back to that. And I'm sure if you look around in life, in your own life, you can find other examples of that. And so what can I do? I can do any of these practices. I can also do spiritual mind treatment and set my intention for the day and be grateful for what it is that unfolds based on that intention. I can work with a practitioner. You all have some really great practitioners here at Connecticut Center to help me see the good, because that's what we're all trained to do. We're trained to hold that highest vision of the divine as you. But what I can tell you is that however much you can practice this practice of gratitude, however much you can share the abundance that is part of your life with yourself and with others, however much you can accept graciously and gratefully anything that comes into your experience, what you are doing is you are working with that flow, the creative process, the flow of reciprocity, and the flow of giving and receiving. So don't cut anybody off, and give to the best of your ability. And I'm going to quote an author. I'm going to leave you with this quote. Sarah Brethnock, in her book, Simple Abundance. You simply will not be the same person 2 months from now after consciously giving thanks each day for the abundance that exists in your life. And you will have set in motion an ancient spiritual law. The more you have and are grateful for, the more you will be given. And to quote another mystic from the 13th and 14th century, Meister Eckhart, he also said, if the only prayer you ever say is thank you, that will suffice. And so have an attitude of gratitude. Sing with gratitude. Be grateful for all that has been, all that is, and all that will be in your life. And open up that channel of the flow of life in your experience. I love each and every one of you. Namaste.